Well, hot dog.
You don't say that. No, I'm the bright one.
You are.
Ooh.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Inside The Urn, Season 4, Episode 3, where we finally get to talk about Macaroo.
I'm Bryan.
I'm Kyle.
We always forget our names.
I'm reppin' blue for Macaroo and muscle shirt for Jan and Dake. I'm a mess.
So, I'm a mess. Before we get into the vote, obviously got to acknowledge that we lose Holly for good in this episode. Obviously I was out there. It was very heartbreaking in the moment. We brought all of these people back because we wanted them to get some sort of redemption and I guess to be voted off first again, and then also to lose that first challenge. It's hard. And it wasn't necessarily what we wanted or what Holly wanted. But it happened and we got through it, and Holly's fine.
Yeah.
Holly's watched the whole season. Mm-hmm. She's okay.
Credit to Holly here for being able to stick it out at redemption for that time that she did, and really letting us in, the audience in, to what that's like for her.
It meant something to Holly for her to sit there and continue to do everything that we've asked her. This is the first time we've ever done redemption. Usually people get to go inside and have a glass of water and sit under the aircon.
Yeah.
When I realized that Holly was going to be the first person to have to sit there all by herself, I almost wanted to can the whole season.
Yeah.
Be like, no, I don't want to do this theme because now we're going to leave Holly here. But she did it, and she was happy to do it, and she was happy to participate in that first challenge, and she did a great job. Unfortunately, Ken just put it together quicker. For her to be in that final confessional and wish Ken and Valentina well, it really is a testament to the player that Holly is and the good sport that she is. And Holly remains one of our favorite contestants that we've ever had on the show. Yeah,
absolutely. And, it's quite compelling to be able to see the conversation that she will have with Ken there, talking about, what it was, how he perceived it compared to how she perceived it. He didn't realize how much it would hurt her to go out first again. And he kind of felt like, I got voted off. It's a bit of a laugh. It's a bit of a joke. But realizing that wasn't the case for Holly. And Valentina also gets to have that conversation with them where she didn't know that she was going home. She was blindsided.
Yeah.
So Valentina and Holly share that experience of I thought it was going a different way, and my whole tribe liked me about it.
And for Holly to be the one sitting there who arguably was burned worse than anybody else in any season of Backyard ever, for her to be sitting there and explaining to Valentina that she can't be mad at the people, she just has to be mad at the game. Yeah. It's not about the people. Again, really kind of speaks to who Holly is as a person and a player. So it was a very lovely moment to watch when we watched the footage back, where Holly has the maturity to not get caught up in the bitterness of it all.
Yeah. And you kind of touched on it there. I think what is left out of this a bit is how it genuinely makes us feel when that first vote happens and we see Holly get voted out. And we have this question of is that what's going to happen for the other two?
Yeah.
Is Yellow going to go to Tribal Council and Kiara's going to be first out? Is Blue going to go to Tribal Council and David's going to be the first one out? Now that we've seen both of those tribes go to Tribal Council, we saw that Kiara got no votes, David got 2. So his name did come up, but he does survive it. So it is interesting to see those different permutations that take place on the different tribes and how they factor in this returning player dynamic.
Ken and Valentina still at redemption, waiting for another round of players to get voted off so that they can participate in the second challenge.
So let's talk about Macaroo losing their first challenge and going to their first Tribal Council.
The first plan that we really see put forward is, let's all just pile on Julie. She's perceived to be the weakest member on the tribe. Whether or not she is or not is up for debate, but perceived to be, and let's all just vote for her. And at the core of this kind of like pylon is this water cooler. Could have picked an easier name, guys. The Water Cooler Alliance, which is Dan, Fu, and David, with Jake as their fourth. Ooh, going down. Yes.
Yeah, and then the other side is you have Fiona and Julie, who have both mentioned previously that they've identified Dan as potentially their weakest link, which is like such a contrast to like these first names that go out of like Julie because perceived weaker member, Dan because of perceived like, you know, he's over qualified in like his challenge ability. And so for Fiona and Julie, it's like that's the person who they see as maybe they're not that unified with. So they're okay with that plan. And what helps Fiona lock in on like the plan is Dan is because she sat on the sit-out bench with Fu during the challenge and they talked about who the vote would be, where Fu had said David, but Fiona heard Dan. So she goes back to camp with confidence of like, Julie, it's Dan.
Yeah. Dan's the name. And then they're around the well with David and Jake, and they think that the four of them will all be able to pile on Dan, plus Fu will vote for Dan while she distracts Dan over there. Yeah.
But what's actually happening with Fu and Dan is that Dan is saying, you know, Jules is the default. But then Fu brings up that maybe Fiona's a better choice here because she's going to be a threat. She's a lawyer. That may be risky for us going forward. And Dan agrees. And I mean, it's the other person who's not in the Water Cooler Alliance. So Dan is like, yep, okay, let's put it on Fiona. And we're going to let David know that the alternative vote is going to be him. That's the fake vote being pitched to Fiona and Julie.
So now the vote is on Fiona. Yeah. But Fiona and Julie have the right read here. I mean, A, because Fiona already doesn't completely trust Fu, but also Jake is not willing to tell them who they're voting for, which raises alarm bells for them, obviously.
Yeah.
So then we see Fiona and Fu go off. And that is where Fiona will discover that she had the wrong name that they said, you know, outside the challenge. And if you're wondering if you didn't see that, it wasn't captured on camera. But Fiona articulates the story well, where it's like, you know, Fu said to her, Dan on the mat. But then when they get together, Fu says, no, I said David. And this is a surprise to Fiona. And she really likes David. And she wants to work with David. And literally, David was just at the well with her. And you know, they were wanting to work together. But Fiona is willing to, you know, admit, like, okay, like,
yeah,
this
I got
is
it wrong.
Survivor.
And like, this is the three of us. Like, it's Fiona, Fu, and Julie are there at the well, so they're three. And they know that Fu's just been off with Dan, so they ask, like, okay, well, what was Dan saying? And Fu says, Dan said David. And so they go, all right, well, I guess it's David.
Yeah.
And they don't want to do it. They don't want to vote for David, but if that's what everyone's doing, then... You know, they kind of got to go with it, especially because they've also perceived that, like, I think it's me, Julie thinks it's her, Fiona thinks it's her. So it's like, if you're saying it's David, then that's better than either of us.
And Fu is really the one pulling the strings behind this vote and gathering the numbers and creating these coalitions. And, you know, you even hear Fu say in her confessional is that she is worried about taking out a girl because she's a girl. And so, you know, kind of what we saw in Joba last time, where it's this perceived putting yourself in an imbalance in the majority. Maybe that's not the best move. But ultimately at Tribal Council, what we will see is this original Water Cooler Alliance. Dan, Fu, Jake, and David, they will vote for Fiona, and Fiona and Julie will vote for David as per Fu's instructions.
Yeah. So what's interesting here is that Fu doesn't need to give Fiona and Julie this plan of it being David. She could just say, like, okay, you heard Dan, let's do Dan. Because she knows that she's got her four. And so, like, that's enough. It doesn't matter what those two do. But when she's talking with Dan, she does bring up that, like, out of the Water Cooler Alliance, like, David is 4. So she would rather these two be putting votes on David rather than Dan because she wants to protect Dan more. And so it's almost like it's like potentially an unnecessary step, but you are also mitigating the risk of an idol here, where it's like, okay, if Fiona does play an idol, then their 2 votes are on David, which I'm more okay with than their 2 votes being on Dan.
Yeah.
And what I like as well, like when we're here spending some time with the Blue Tribe, we get to discover a little bit about what their thoughts are and relationships are externally from this tribe. So like Jake reveals to his tribe that he had a bond with Abby at the start, that he's like, I've got a connection there. And Julie also talks about having a connection with Michael because of like him helping her over the hill. And so, yeah, it's interesting to see this like the breakfast feast at the beginning of the day sort of still having like relevance here, where it's like as much as they're in this tribe, like they're aware of people on other tribes that they may want to link up with down the track.
And it's the perfect time to be thinking that, because as the next time on Backyard Survivor showed, we are getting ready to drop and swap.
Yeah.
We are mixing things up. So not only will the alliances that you have on this on your starter tribe be so important, but all those connections that you made at the beginning of the day are also, what people might have to start relying on. Okay, tune in next time for episode 4.
Bye.
Bye.
Good?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, I think we nailed it. Surprised by our succinctness.
Yeah, especially on that vote.